Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about The Legend of Heroes Trails in the Sky, the third, the final game in the Liberl arc. I just finished it a couple hours ago. I have a lot of thoughts. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, and it's going to be extremely rambly, just like the last two. But I have my notes, and I have a little rundown here of each of the doors. I'm going to talk about that as well. This game's very different from the previous two in a lot of ways, but also still continues that story in a really cool way, and I really, really like it. Spoilers, I suppose, for the review. I think right now it is my number two of the three games. I think for me right now it's second chapter, third, first chapter. Uh, I would be very surprised if third dropped that far as we go, because although there are a lot of things that I think third is not my favorite so far in the series four. I also think that some of the stuff in it is absolutely incredible, and it has some of my favorite moments in the entire series so far. Again, I'm very early on. Next up are the Crossbell games, and I'm excited for those. But let's get into the third and why I'm so excited and what all I loved with it. That entire prologue is really cool. Kevin Graham getting to be like a secret agent of the church and sneaking aboard this airliner and having to try and fit in and make sure he doesn't make too many waves, and then get in and solve some puzzles and then just trash some people. It was all a really cool setup that led into everything else that goes on. I don't think it went on for too long at all. I think it was just about perfect in length. It was really fun to try and see if I could figure out who the masked people were. And there were a lot of people that I have no idea, right? But a couple that I have an idea who they might be, and that was cool. Um, it was a really fun opener. I think on its own, it's not as good as, say, Lalacal from second chapter, or as good as, even in some ways, I think it doesn't give you as much information as Roland in first chapter, right? But it was definitely the most fun of the three of those. It was a blast, just rolling around that ship and solving puzzles and doing stuff. But again, part of that is because it was so short, right? It didn't overstay its welcome in a lot of ways. And I guess I should say now, I'm going to spoil this entire game over the course of this review. So if you want a no spoilers question of should you play this game, absolutely you should, 100%. Just know going in that it's more of a dungeon crawler than the previous two were. Where the previous two were pretty linear with some deviations. Second chapter less so in the second half, in chapter 6, which is my favorite chapter of that game. Very linear for the most part, right? This game is a lot more open, but still very linear. Pretty much a direct dungeon crawl most of the time, with the doors serving as side quest almost, of like, hey, you can go and do this, or you can go and do this, which is really cool. I liked it a lot. But there are definitely things from the previous two games that aren't in this one, right? So there's not a lot of NPCs to talk to and storylines to get from there. There's not a lot of being able to come back to areas you've already been and talk to people and find different interactions. Instead, in this game, it's a lot of unraveling mysteries that were set up in the first two games, or getting more backstory on things that happened in the first two games, which is really cool, and I like that a lot. Diving in all spoilers, just remember that. I think the stuff with Reese, I looked up how to pronounce the names. The pronunciation is Risu, and so this time I'm not going to make the mistake that I made last time with Rin, calling her Reen. Um, I think that stuff is all good. The introduction of Reese is pretty solid, right? Uh, it's nothing amazing, but it's fun stuff. Finding the vault underneath the church is really cool. I think that's a whole nifty setup that they have there for Grand Cell Cathedral. Um, Very quickly things go off though. Uh, People get transported to this weird, cool world, and you have the garden, and you have to start trying to unravel things and make sense of it all. And very quickly you find Tita, and you get your first door. And this is where I think the third really shines. There's two big things about third that I adore. One of them is the story with Kevin Graham, which is really good, and we're going to get into that. And the other are the doors. I think that Trails the Third with the doors are such a cool way to tell snippets and moments in these live vignettes almost of these different characters, stuff that we never would have gotten to see from Joshua or Estelle's perspective, right? But instead, because we're playing as those characters, we now get to see things from their perspective. And the first one of these that we get is the first of the Moon Doors, the Orbital Gear Project. I'll let you know right now, I loved almost all of the doors. There's a couple small exceptions. I love almost all the doors. This one was right off the bat a great tone setter for me. Setting everything up with Tita and her parents and getting introduced to them, and Erica and Dan are really cool. I like them. Leading into that great moment of Tita saying, "Hey, I want to help," and Erica basically being like, "You need to recognize what this means. It doesn't matter what I think," and I have it written up here. It doesn't matter what the developer of any new weapon thinks. We're not the ones actually going out and using the things we make. The devices we pour our hearts into making go on to cause unspeakable suffering to people. Nothing we can do to stop it. We're doing what we're doing, fully aware of what the potential consequences may be down the line, but can you? Such a great scene as Tita has to recognize, hey, by helping with this, there will be people that get killed because of these things at some point. We need it. We have to have it to be able to fight against. Okay, name-wise here. Vryn says patter matter. The word looks like pater mater to me and would be more like the German pater, but we're going to go patter matter because that's what she says. To be able to fight the patter matter, they need the Orbital Gear Project. And so they have to take these steps. And Tita choosing for herself to take it as well is really good. You can come back after you have Agate and get a second scene out of this door, which is really good, where you get to fight the Orbital Gear and Agate gets to prove himself to Tita's parents. I think that in some ways, by making it more of a... There is a joke that's used, which is Erica and Dan don't understand the relationship between Tita and Agate, because it seems like they think it's a romantic one, and other characters act that way too. Whereas in second chapter, it was very clearly like, I'm your brother now, you're my sister, kind of relationship. So that was a little interesting. Agate never makes it out to be anything different than that, and who knows? I mean, I know these characters are going to continue to show up later, right? I mean, I know what character does later anyway, so maybe things will change, but as of right now, I'm pretty happy with Big Bro Agate and Little Sis Tita. But I still think that scene was really, really good. I think that the core theme of that, of the bonds that we forge, which again is going to come up more later, was really, really good. And I'm not going to go through every door here, because again, we'd be here forever, and I still want you to play this game. But I have my notes up as I went through the game of things that I took note of. The dungeon crawl itself is not bad. Having the map at all times is really good. Being able to see all of the offshoots so you can follow them to find the doors, to find your chests. Chest messages in this game are still just as great. In fact, some of them are dev comments, and I've highlighted one of those that really meant a lot to me. There's also another chest comment that comes up later that's like, bet you 50 Mira that item is still in your inventory during the final battle. And it's like, well, it probably was, you cheeky little chest. It probably was. I like that a lot of the enemies are devils from the Testament. Because again, that means something to Kevin and Reese, and we find out why later, that all comes to a really interesting head later on. But it was such a cool surprise when you get to the first boss, and it's Bennu, the Casket of Sorrow, It's like, what? What is this thing? I think it's really cool that they give you Julia super early on and Major Vander super early on. So that you have time to use those two characters when you didn't have a lot of time to use them in second chapter. It's really cool to let them have some time to be in the party. Now, granted, later on, they kind of took some back seats for me because I got other characters that I like more, but that also comes to a really cool head later on. And you get some really interesting scenes with them. The stuff with Julia and Mueller training together so that Julia can clear her mind was really solid. I liked that door a lot. I think there are some doors in here that aren't as great. And I don't think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm glad they're in here. So, the sun doors are minigame doors. And the Kapua Express Delivery Service one is the first one that you get, right? You get to have Josette in your party. That's pretty cool. I think that door is solid. I think that minigame goes on for a while. But it's solid, right? Some other ones, not so much. I don't love the legendary angler Sundoor number 2. I've said before, I don't think the fishing in this game, in this series, so far at least, maybe it gets better later, is great. The timing on it's really interesting, and very precise for some of the fishing, to a point where if you then say, hey, fish in this fishing tournament, and you have RNG that determines if your opponent catches good fish or not, it's not great for me. I don't like it coming down straight to RNG. I threw my head against fishing battle number 2 against Norche for like 45 minutes and then said, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Just because, again, maybe I'm just not good at it, you know? But I was glad that I didn't have to do all that to be able to get the other door. Just completing level 1 was good enough, and level 1 was fairly simple. I think in that same way, the other mini games of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that's a really fun mini game, right? And you can brute force it eventually if you just memorize all the answers. Not on the level of the other doors, right? But still really fun. The Gambler Jack stuff, Gambler Jack, the book from the second game that I didn't even talk about in the second game's review because I was so busy talking about Sister Carnelia and the Blue Knight. Gambler Jack comes back in here, and you get to fight Gambler Jack in a casino battle. You get to play poker against Gambler Jack. Super cool. And I guess at that point, honestly, once you have that mini game, every other mini game is like, that's cool, but it's not that, you know? I don't get to control a puppet against Pedro. Which again, it's not me bashing the Sundoors. It's just that compared to that one, none of the other Sundoors meant anywhere near as much to me. The arena was cool. Getting to go back to the arena and doing that was nifty. It was fun, right? I still really like the combat in these games. And I had a lot of party members to be able to switch things around with over the course of the game. But I guess we can stop talking about Sundoors. I'm going to keep jumping around like this as I go through my notes. I have just notated here on the surface, you're a cheerful person having fun with everyone, but on the inside, you're as cold as can be. And this is a line from Reese to Kevin. And I want to come back to it later, but I just wanted to mention that is such a good line and immediately tells you there's something more going on with Kevin, right? There's definitely something else happening here with him. Shara gets a new design. Everybody gets like new portraits in the status screen. Shara gets a brand new design. She looks great. Absolutely loving this new design for Shara. She's rocking it. She looks great. Let's get back to these doors here because the next one that I have notated down is the Estelle and Joshua moon door. That one was good. That one was really good. It also made me hate Wiseman even more. There's a line that Cassius has that I have just written down here that's determined to sleep outside again. It's like, how often did Joshua force himself to sleep outside all by himself because he was expecting the society to come get him? Wiseman! But that final shot of Estelle holding that bug with a big smile, that's a really powerful moment. The next big thing that I noted down is that you get Colonel Richard, which is sick. Colonel Richard joins your party and you get more background on him, and his arc from the first 2 games finally gets to come to a really powerful point where, especially at the end, where he references, you know, he didn't deserve to be a part of your group, but that he's so glad that he was, you know, and it just, Colonel Richard, and I think it's all summed up in this line from Zen, right? You might have done things that you regret, but it's not the past that determines who you are. It's what you choose to do now. And Richard was a great character combat-wise, first off. But also it was really cool to have him in the party, to get more backstory on him, to get more interactions between him and the rest of the characters. It was really, really solid. I think the one of these that is the most interesting is also the one that is the most heartbreaking. And I kind of want to save that one for last when we talk about the doors. So we're going to talk about Ren's door last. Um, but there's just a little. We'll blitz through some of these other doors, right? Olivier's door, getting to the castle and having whenever the Chancellor is talking to Olivier, the theme for Grand South Castle's inverted, so that it's not the song that you recognize and that you feel at peace with. It instead is off-putting and makes it feel wrong somehow, and is really cool. The Happiness Stone, Moondor, was really nice, with Mary just trying to make the matron smile. I'm fully on board with just trying to make the matron smile. She deserves all the happiness in the world. Give her that happiness stone. Good for that. That was really nice. I really liked some of the other doors. I loved the look into the salt pail. That was super cool. Getting to see almost like an SCP style entry of like, hey, this is what it looks like when the church goes to get the Septian Church goes to get these artifacts. It's here's the information, here's what it did, here's us trying to contain it, which was really cool. Chloe confessing her love for Joshua really surprised me. That was a really good moment where Joshua's just like, I'm sorry, I love Estelle. And Chloe's like, yeah, I know. I knew you were going to say that. I just needed to say it to move forward. And that's another big theme in this game, along with bonds, is getting past your trauma, not because that you decide just not to deal with it anymore, but because you accept that it's a part of who you are and you try to move forward with it. There's a really good line right towards the end with Ren by Estelle just about that. And it's a great core theme for this game as Kevin has to try and deal with the things that he's done and with his own desire to be punished for them. We'll get back to that in a minute. I know I'm jumping ahead. I'm really excited to talk about that, but we'll finish running through some of these doors. Zin's door with him and Kilika was pretty good. I liked that. It was a fun diversion, getting to see that Kilika's going back to Erebonia, or to Calvard, not Erebonia, to Calvard. Could be some cool stuff that comes up later there. Getting to see the what were their names? Race. I can't remember. The three guys from Ruan, the thugs. I can't remember their names. I'm so sorry. Getting to see them in that door, Agate's door, was cool. That was a cool door. That was a cool door. Getting to see them come together and have to work together, that was really nice. Man, I feel like I have to talk about Ren's door, but I want to try and cover all the other ones first. Uh, the information door about Cassius going to Erebonia was really cool and trying to solve all that there. The door about the breakdown for the information on Patter Matter and the Gordius class, the door on Phantom Thief B, all that stuff, all that informational doors, those were all really, really cool, right? Chloe's door, going back to Genis Academy and having to play through her days there and her slowly opening up and getting to meet Lecter and knowing that Lecter is going to become an issue because he's working with the Chancellor. All of that was super cool. I think the door with Campanella was really interesting. Getting to see the other Anguisses and getting to see that, I mean, we didn't get to see who they are, but we got to see the way they talk and getting to see that each one of them has a very different personality, right? Getting to hear from the Grand Master, finding out he has the Oriole now. That definitely is going to come back up later, right? I've put it off far enough. We got to talk about Ren's door. Ren's door broke me. Ren's door is one of the most horrifying things that I have ever read in a video game. It's absolutely, in a lot of ways, it's sickening, and it fully explains why she is the way she is. The fact that she made these alternate personalities and then killed them to free them and then eventually was left alone just by herself to deal with what she was being forced to do. And it puts, when you look back, I'm getting emotional. When you look back on Ren over the course of the games, over the course of first chapter and second chapter, everything she said, everything she's done is put back into perspective with that door, and it hurts. That door hurt. And now I'm right there I was already on board with Joshua and Estelle wanting to rescue her. Now I 100% I need to see where that goes. And I need her to be happy and safe and with a family. And that's all I need. I've only known Red for 3 games now, but I need her to be happy and safe. Much in the same way that I needed Joshua to be okay, right? Yeah, that door got me real good. Real good. And since we're already talking about the tough stuff story-wise, let's talk about Kevin Graham. Let's talk about his desire to be punished for what he's done. And let's talk about that reveal. Because the last place that you go before you literally go to Gehenna, to their version of hell, is that you have to go back to the home, basically, the orphanage that Kevin and Reese and Rufina were raised in. And you have that full breakdown of the reveal that Kevin was the one that killed Rufina because he was overcome by the power of his sigil. There's a word they use for it, and I can't remember it right now. But it absorbed the power of that artifact and then killed her. You find out the truth about his mother, and the fact that Kevin Graham has been living his life hoping to be punished for what he's done because he can't make it better. He's running from the pain of his trauma, and he's desperately attempting to find somebody who can take him out, basically, in the most painful way possible. And it's because of that everything happens. All of this game happens because Kevin is running from his trauma. And granted, by the end of the game, it all works out, right? Everything's better because this happened. Kevin's better because this happened. But this game, again, focuses on bonds, just like the first one and the second one, and it focuses on accepting what has happened, even when it's absolutely terrible, and moving forward. And Kevin winds up, oh man, it's such a good moment. Reese literally gets sent to hell, and Kevin dives in after her, and then they have to fight their way back through Kevin's own personal hell that has been created by Phantasma, by the Lord of Phantasma, just for him, so that he can be punished. There's a gnat flying around him. And along the way, you meet people that he's hunted as the heretic hunter. And you find some of them that Reese is just like, Kevin, I can't believe you've never said anything about this. And he's just like, what was I going to say? How was I going to tell you? Yeah, I had to kill this kid because a cult turned him into a monster. And it's just like, oh man, Kevin. And meanwhile, you have Kevin the whole time going, yeah, no, I deserve it. But at the same time, he's got too much he's got to do. And it's this perfect dynamic, this perfect dichotomy of the things that he has done can't ever be washed away. But he's got work he's got to do. And again, if we go back to that Zen Vathic line, you might have done things that you regret, but it's not the past that determines who you are. It's what you choose to do now. This whole game is tying back into this core message. You have to pick up the broken pieces of your life and put them back together. And I love it so much. The scene at the end of Gehenna where Kevin takes back his own power, stands up on his own again, declines Wiseman's offer, because of course Wiseman's there, right? Uh, and faces off against him, and then they get surrounded, and your team busts down the door of hell to come in and rescue you. And you got Shara and Chloe are up on the cliffside or on the doors like overhang casting arts, and you've got your characters with guns firing away from up there, and everybody else is down in the field hacking away. It's super cool so that Kevin and Reese can get away back into the garden. It's super cool. It's such a powerful moment, and I absolutely love it. Where it's like, well, yeah, this is basically it. We did our best. You know, we wanted to try and do better, but we can't get any better than this. And then just bam, here comes the party, in such a cool way. I absolutely loved it. Then you fight your way through. You have to split up teams, right? But you fight your way through. I probably could have chosen my teams better. I went, well, Estelle, Joshua, and Ren are going together, and Olivier and Vander are going together, and Chloe and Julia are going together. Kevin and Reese obviously have to go together, and Tita and Agate are going together. And then I went, and I guess I'll pair the squares from there. And so my final party for the final boss was Shara, Zen, Kevin, and Reese, and then like 4-man teams everywhere else. That whole sequence is super cool, as each boss has to be defeated in sequence. Because the way S breaks work, I was able to take out almost all of the enemies by using S breaks right after the first boss, or any of the bosses, I guess, used their big move. I could then hit the enemies and take out most of the chaff right away, which was really cool. Again, I had gone down, I had to grind out the 400 battles, right? So I could get all the doors. And so I had got everybody up to like level 130 before I even started that. And so the final dungeon was really fun. I had a blast with it. It was really cool that no matter, like, if you put somebody on a team, loot for them would drop in that section of the final dungeon. That was really cool. I liked that a lot. And as compared to, again, the final dungeon at the end of first chapter, this dungeon had a much more clear pathway that you were supposed to follow. So you could take the offshoots, get your treasure, then get back on the main path. And I never got lost, which is really cool. The moment where Kevin and Reese have to shoot Rufina, and Kevin is prepared to do it again, all on his own, just like he did the last time. And Reese is like, let me carry this burden with you. We're family. It got me good. I won't lie, it got me good. But it didn't get me near as good as the goodbyes. I don't know what it is about the goodbyes that got me. I guess it's because I know that I'm moving on from the Liberal arc, and most of these characters won't just show up all the time, right? I'm moving on to the next games, and I'm going to be leaving some of these people behind, and they're not going to be all hanging out together and having a good time again. And I got super emotional, and the goodbyes were really tough. It was really tough to sit through those, because, again, it was really well done. It was the characters saying goodbye to each other, and also saying goodbye to the party, and I think or to the player, I mean. And I think the one that really hit hard for me, that made me get emotional right away, was Olivier, because I know what he's going to go do. He's going to try and take on the Chancellor. He would have loved to be able to stay in that world with everybody else, all these people that he cares about, all his friends that won't be able to help him in that fight that he's got coming up. But he's got to go. He's got to go leave. And it got me good. It got me real good. The Ren one is really powerful. So I've taken some lines again. There are some other lines in between, but I've taken these from Estelle. Every day you spend with someone could turn out to be the last, and that's a reality all of us have to face up to and fight every day. And that's why we have to smile. We know we're not alone, and that everyone else feels the same way we do, so we put on our bravest face and promise to meet again, whether it comes true or not, and we go back to our lives and keep on going. Which is really good. That is a great series of lines. Ren obviously shook up by that. Says she's going to run, knowing that Estelle and Joshua are gonna chase her. Absolutely great. I loved that moment so much. I just want them to get Ren and everything to be okay. That's all. And they're in Crossbell, so who knows? Don't spoil it for me, please, but who knows? They could show up in the Crossbell games. I'm excited to get started on those soon. Yeah, I loved everything about the story in this. The story in this is absolutely incredible. Second only to second chapter so far for me. Second chapter story, I still prefer, but third, being able to get those vignettes jumping around the way that it did, really, really great. A couple small things I haven't mentioned. Cheetah being able to use the orbital gear as a ability, super cool. Loved that. That was super nifty. As a craft, I tripped over that word for some reason. Kept trying to say check. Man, Gilbert, I rescued him every time, right? Every single time. And then he gets a really cool hero moment. Gilbert gets a hero moment. What the heck? You get to talk to Lo again. And that moment's really poignant. That's really powerful. I liked that a lot. I also have a dev message that was put in one of the chests here that says, Trails means the world to me. I'm happy I could share my world with you. Thank you for giving this wonderful series a chance. B. And yeah, thank you for making it, B. I'm so glad to have started the series. Can't wait to get into the rest of them and to see where some of this stuff goes. But as a closure to the Sky arc, this is really good. We had in the first game, we had the theme of bonds, right? In the second game, the theme of bonds continues, and we get the theme of inherited will. In the third game, both of those things are still there, right? But now we have this theme, picking yourself up and moving forward, even with what the world has handed you, which is really good. I love Kevin's arc over the course of this, because you get that moment where Einselnate, Sister Carnelia, I didn't even talk about that at the start of this game, and the reveal that was. Love that, by the way. Where she basically tells him, you wouldn't have asked where everybody else was before. And you recognize, again, just like with Ren, by looking back, Kevin used people. He didn't open himself up to really be friends with everybody, right? And in this game, you get that moment where that switches, and he actually asks people for help. And I think the moment where it really hit me was right at the final boss, where Kevin turns to Shara and Zen, two people that realistically aren't his closest friends, right? And says, thank you for sticking with me all this way. Whereas the old Kevin would have just been like, hey, let's go finish this. But now these people matter to him, And I think it's really potent that right when he begins to recognize how much all these people matter to him, he has to watch them all leave out of a glowing gateway and know that he's not going to get to see all of them, possibly forever, but definitely for a while. They're never all going to be gathered up like this again, And that's really powerful to me. When you tie that into Estelle's words of, whether we know we're going to see them or not, whether it comes true or not, we promise to meet again. It's really good. It's really good. I feel like I'm just going to keep repeating it's really good if we keep going. But I absolutely love Trails the Third. I didn't think I was going to at first. The scene at the beginning is so good, but right after that, you get stuck in the dungeon crawl, and I was like, I don't want a dungeon crawl. I want the world. I want to be able to go around Roland and Grand Cell, and you do kind of get to go around Grand Cell, but that's beside the point. But you still get those interactions with NPCs through the doors, right? You still get to go into houses and talk to people. And this needed to happen. This was important for Kevin's character moving forward. And I don't know that Kevin shows up again. Please don't spoil for me, if he does. But moving forward, Kevin needed this. And I think it's so interesting. It would have been so easy, right? To have Kevin, like I talked about in the last video, to have Kevin just be the best, right? And instead, we got a whole game introducing Kevin, and then now we get to play as Kevin, but we never really get to see inside Kevin's mind until halfway through the game. The entire first half of the game, Kevin is still that character he was from second chapter. He's still the cocky, hey, I can do it. I'm the Dominion. I'm the heretic hunter. Let's go. I'm going to use all you people. And it's not until halfway through where we start to see the cracks. And Kevin himself breaks under the pressure. Kevin Graham, great character. I don't love him as much as I love Estelle, but definitely up there for me, protagonist-wise. Really great character. I could just keep going, right? This game's incredible. If you had told me when I started this series that I would get to go down into the pits of hell of Kevin Graham's own personal hell and fight against his demons, I would have said, that doesn't seem like the kind of game this is. This seems more like I mean, we're fighting dragons, but that's about it, right? We're fighting weird magic items from the past. But this series just continues over and over again to not just surprise, but to impress me. And in some ways, some of that stuff's really dark in a way that I didn't expect. I thought Hamel was going to be like the most tragic thing, right? But Ren's door 15, it was not okay. And I just want her to be okay, Very rarely does a game hit me that hard in a moment like that. Games will try to be heavy in that way, and everything does, right? Media will attempt, if it wants to be heavy, it will try to hit you that hard, right? But most of the time it doesn't hit quite as hard as this did. Something about the way this was delivered, I guess it was the realization when it hit me who the customers were they were helping and what was happening. I recoiled. But Ren, I almost did it. Ren makes a lot more sense to me now. And now I just want to help her. I'm right there with Joshua, right there with Estelle. Just like the end of the first game, where I was right with Estelle and trying to go get Joshua. At the end of this game, I want to go rescue Ren, And I know that I'm going to get some new characters soon, and I'm very excited to meet them, because I know that now we're going to a different main cast. I'm going to play the Geofront version. That's the one that everybody seemed to recommend. I've already purchased it, the game, and I've got the patcher downloaded and everything. But I'm very excited to move into the Crossbell series. Let me know your thoughts on Trails the Third. I'm sure there's other things that I've forgotten to talk about. The support system. I just want to throw this out there because your party's huge by the end of this game. The support system that lets you put a character in support to be able to give you enhanced stats or enhanced XP and Septium. I had more than enough Septium by the end to kit everybody out. I had more than enough money by the end to kit everyone out. It was great. I was really concerned when I saw how big the party was that I would have a hard time getting gear to everybody, but by the end of the game, everybody was kitted out. It was great to be able to have all 4 parties and all of them be sufficient. I didn't have to worry about, my best gear's on Kevin. He's not with this group. It doesn't matter because I got Mueller is with this group and he hits like a truck, and just, it was great. I didn't expect a dungeon crawler. I didn't want a dungeon crawler, but I think this was a really cool sidestep gameplay wise. And then story-wise is every bit as good as the previous 2 games. Again, my ranking right now is second chapter, third, first chapter. I'm excited to see how that changes over the course of the series. But I absolutely loved this game, and I can't wait to play the rest. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And until next time, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum. The Trails has to offer.